Wildfires are a devastating natural disaster where flames not only burn down trees and homes, but also take away innocent lives. From historic fires like the Great Hinckley Fire of 1894 to the tragic events of the Granite Mountain hotshots in 2013 and the devastating wildfires in California in 2018. Each fire is a painful story, but also full of valuable lessons. Today, let's join the most everything in uncovering the most devastating wildfires in U.S. history, where nature shows its destructive power and reminds us of our responsibility to protect this planet. California wildfires, 2025. A year of pain and loss. In January 2025, California again witnessed fierce wildfires, especially in the Los Angeles area, where fires burned thousands of structures, killing at least 10 people and forcing more than 180,000 people to evacuate. This is considered one of the most serious wildfire disasters in the history of the state, leaving behind serious consequences for people, property, and the environment. The fires began to break out on January 7, 2025, in the context of prolonged dry weather, strong winds, and high temperatures. The fire quickly spread, sweeping through areas such as Pacific Palisades, Eaton, and Hearst, destroying a series of structures and forcing thousands of people to leave their homes. The Pacific Palisades fire is considered one of the worst wildfires in Los Angeles history, as the fire engulfed a large area, destroying many important residential areas and monuments. The consequences of the disaster were extremely serious. At least 10 people were killed, dozens were injured or missing. More than 10,000 structures, including homes, businesses, and public buildings, were destroyed or severely damaged. Economic losses were estimated at $52 to $57 billion, shaking one of the areas with the highest real estate values in the United States. Insurance companies predicted that the compensation could reach $20 billion, but many properties were not fully insured, causing a serious financial crisis. In addition to causing physical damage, the fires also left lasting impacts on health and the environment. Smoke from the fires spread across the region, severely affecting people's health, especially respiratory diseases. The natural ecosystem was severely damaged, causing environmental imbalance and affecting wildlife. In an effort to control the fire, firefighters worked tirelessly, but harsh weather conditions with strong winds and drought made firefighting difficult. A series of emergency evacuations were deployed, along with the provision of temporary shelters, food, and water to affected people. However, the situation remained complicated, with fires spreading unpredictably. The 2025 California wildfire disaster is a stark warning about the impacts of climate change and the need for effective forest management measures. Prolonged drought, strong winds, and lack of investment in fire protection systems have increased the risk and devastation of wildfires. The lessons learned from this disaster underscore the urgency of improving natural resource management and investing in infrastructure to reduce future risks. As the fires are gradually brought under control, California's rebuilding and recovery efforts have begun. It is hoped that this disaster will spur stronger action to protect the environment and respond to climate change. The painful memories of the 2025 wildfires will forever serve as a powerful reminder of the destructive power of nature when not respected and managed properly. Maui wildfires. 2023. Sea of Fire takes paradise. In August 2023, the island of Maui, Hawaii, was devastated by a devastating wildfire. The raging fire swept through the Lahaina, Kula, and upcountry areas, killing more than 100 people, destroying thousands of homes, and turning an island paradise into ashes. It was one of the worst wildfire disasters in Hawaii's modern history. At the time, Maui was facing extreme weather conditions. Strong winds from Hurricane Dora, combined with a prolonged drought, turned the parched forest into a fire ready to burn. A small spark, possibly from a damaged power line or human activity, ignited the fire and spread. Lahaina, a popular and historic tourist town, was the hardest hit. Within hours, the fire had destroyed more than 2,200 structures, including many cultural relics and historic settlements. The intense heat and speed of the fire left thousands unable to evacuate. The consequences of the disaster were devastating. More than 100 people were killed, dozens were missing, and thousands were injured or left homeless. The island's natural environment was devastated, with many ecosystems and iconic landscapes destroyed. Economic losses were estimated at more than $5 billion, deeply affecting the lives of residents and the tourism industry, Maui's main source of income. In the chaos, survivors sought shelter in temporary shelters. Emergency crews worked tirelessly to evacuate residents, put out fires, and provide essential supplies to those affected. The Hawaiian government declared a state of emergency, while the federal government and charities from around the world joined forces to help Maui recover from the disaster. The 2023 Maui wildfires were a stark reminder of the impacts of climate change and the need to manage natural resources sustainably. Prolonged drought, high winds, and small mistakes led to devastating consequences, highlighting the importance of careful preparation and building more effective fire protection systems. Today, Maui begins a challenging journey of rebuilding. Plans are underway to restore burned sites, not only to preserve the culture but also to symbolize the resilience of the community. The Maui disaster will forever serve as a profound lesson, reminding future generations that nature can be a formidable enemy if humans neglect to protect and live in harmony with it. California wildfires. 2018, a year of tragedy and historic tragedy. In 2018, California experienced one of the worst years in its history of wildfires, when a series of devastating fires burned more than 2 million acres of land, destroyed tens of thousands of structures, and claimed the lives of more than 100 people. Names like the Camp Fire, the Woolsey Fire, and the Carr Fire have become etched in people's memories, becoming symbols of the unpredictable devastation of nature. On November 8, 2018, the Camp Fire broke out in the town of Paradise, Northern California, and quickly became the most destructive wildfire in the state's history. The raging fire, sparked by a Pacific Gas and Electric (PG&E) power line failure, spread at terrifying speed thanks to strong winds and prolonged dry weather conditions. In just a few hours, the Camp Fire burned more than 150,000 acres and destroyed nearly 19,000 structures, including homes, businesses, and public buildings. The town of Paradise, known for its peaceful beauty, was reduced to ashes, killing more than 85 people and leaving thousands homeless. On the same day, the Woolsey Fire broke out in Southern California, in Ventura and Los Angeles counties. The blaze spread across 96,000 acres, destroying more than 1,600 structures, including million-dollar homes in Malibu. The Woolsey Fire killed 3 people and forced thousands to evacuate. The fire was fueled by strong Santa Ana winds, making it extremely difficult to control. Images of luxury homes burned to the ground became a poignant symbol of the disaster. Earlier, in July 2018, the Carr Fire threw Shasta and Trinity counties into chaos. The fire burned more than 229,000 acres of land and destroyed more than 1,600 structures, killing 8 people. In particular, the phenomenon of fire tornadoes, columns of fire swirling with extremely strong winds, appeared, causing more terror for firefighters and residents. This is one of the fires that clearly demonstrated the challenges that California faces in the context of increasingly severe climate change. In 2018, more than 8,500 fires broke out across California, leaving thousands of families homeless, communities broken, and ecosystems severely damaged. Economic losses are estimated at tens of billions of dollars, while the psychological and social consequences will persist for many years. Scientists and experts say that climate change, combined with ineffective forest management and outdated power infrastructure, has increased the risk and devastation of fires. The 2018 California wildfires were a stark reminder of the destructive power of nature and the need for environmental protection. Lessons from the Camp Fire, Woolsey Fire, and Carr Fire underscore the importance of improving fire protection systems, investing in sustainable forest management, and modernizing infrastructure. Yet the painful memories of a tragic year will forever be etched in California's history, reminding us of our responsibility to protect the planet from the growing challenges of climate change. Yarnell Fire Disaster. 2013. Tragedy. Claims 19. Firefighters' lives. On June 28, 2013, a devastating wildfire erupted near the town of Yarnell, Arizona, becoming one of the deadliest in the state's history. The raging fire burned more than 8,400 acres, destroyed dozens of homes, and claimed the lives of 19 Granite Mountain Hotshots firefighters, America's premier firefighting team. This was the highest number of firefighters killed in a single disaster since 1933. The fire began when a lightning strike struck a dry forest area near Yarnell, where prolonged dry conditions and high temperatures turned trees into kindling. High winds and dry air caused the fire to spread rapidly, spiraling out of control within hours. Firefighters, including the Granite Mountain Hotshots, were rushed to the scene to protect the town and surrounding communities. However, a sudden change in wind direction pushed the fire to spread, trapping the firefighters in a difficult area. Despite efforts to use emergency shelters, 19 members of the team could not survive the intense heat of the fire. The disaster had serious consequences. In addition to the 19 firefighters who died, the fire destroyed more than 8,400 acres of forest land and dozens of homes, leaving many families homeless. The Yarnell community suffered heavy losses both physically and mentally, as they faced the pain of irreparable loss. The fire not only shook this land but also shocked the entire United States, as the deaths of the Granite Mountain Hotshots became a symbol of courage and sacrifice. In the aftermath of the disaster, organizations and government agencies quickly deployed support for affected residents, while reviewing and improving fire safety procedures. In Prescott, Arizona, where the Granite Mountain Hotshots are based, a memorial was built to honor their sacrifice. The Yarnell tragedy also spurred initiatives for better forest management, including the control of dry grass and combustible materials to reduce the risk of future fires. The 2013 Yarnell fire is not only a tragic chapter in history, but also a reminder of the dangers firefighters face every day. The sacrifice of the Granite Mountain Hotshots is a testament to their courage and dedication to protecting their communities. The lessons learned from this tragedy will be remembered forever, as a commitment to respect and protect nature, as well as improving the safety of those on the front lines against the destructive power of fire. The Great Cloquet Fire of 1918, a bloody tragedy in Minnesota history. On October 12, 1918, a devastating fire broke out in Cloquet, Minnesota, USA, becoming the worst wildfire disaster in the state's history. The fire claimed the lives of more than 450 people, destroyed entire communities, and left a lasting pain in the memories of survivors. The fire started in a forest area near Cloquet, where logging and railroad construction activities were taking place. People often burned excess wood to clear land, but in the prolonged dry weather conditions, strong winds, and sparks from a locomotive ignited a large fire. The fire quickly spread, covering an area of more than 1,500 square kilometers, 386,000 acres, and engulfing neighboring towns such as Moose Lake, Kettle River, and many surrounding areas. The fire spread at an alarming rate, leaving thousands without time to find shelter. Many were burned alive as they tried to escape, while others died from inhaling toxic smoke. Of the more than 450 victims, many bodies were unrecognizable due to the intense heat. Thousands more were seriously injured and faced both physical and mental scars. The consequences of the disaster went beyond the number of casualties and had a devastating impact on the lives of the survivors. More than 12,000 homes were burned down, leaving some 52,000 people homeless. Entire communities were destroyed, and economic losses were estimated to exceed $73 million, equivalent to about $1.4 billion today. The local ecosystem was also severely damaged, with thousands of hectares of forest and natural habitats destroyed. As the fire spread, rescue efforts were quickly launched. Residents and firefighters worked together to try to control the fire, but the limited technology of the time made it impossible to fight the fire. Relief boats were mobilized to evacuate residents from the danger zone, while those who could not leave sought refuge in rivers, lakes, or makeshift shelters. Despite significant efforts, the extent of the fire's devastation was too great to be completely contained. After the disaster, the federal government and the state of Minnesota quickly provided aid to help residents rebuild their lives. Food, water, and temporary housing were distributed, while efforts were made to rebuild the devastated communities. The disaster also prompted the introduction of stricter forest management measures, including controlled burning and improved fire protection systems to prevent similar incidents. Today, the Great Cloquet Fire serves as a painful history lesson, highlighting the dangers of improper forest management and the importance of being prepared for natural disasters. Memorials have been erected in Cloquet and surrounding towns to remember the victims and remind future generations of the tragedy. The Cloquet Fire is not only a painful chapter in Minnesota's history, but also a powerful warning about the potential dangers posed by nature if people do not protect the environment and take effective preventive measures. The Great Fire of 1910, the largest forest fire in Idaho and Minnesota history. In August 1910, one of the most devastating forest fires in U.S. history occurred, burning more than 3 million acres of forest in Idaho and hundreds of thousands of acres in Minnesota. The fire raged fiercely, taking the lives of more than 80 people and destroying thousands of homes, leaving behind severe consequences for the economy, the environment, and the lives of people. The disaster occurred in the context of a long, dry summer, with high temperatures and strong winds turning dense forests into fuel. Uncontrolled logging left behind large amounts of sawdust and flammable wood chips, creating conditions for the fire to spread rapidly. A small spark, either natural or human, ignited a giant firestorm. The fire spread with terrible force, engulfing forests and towns, turning the sky red and the air suffocating. In Idaho, the town of Wallace was almost completely destroyed by fire, leaving only a few structures standing. Survivors said the fire roared like a giant train, and the heat evaporated the water in the rivers. The consequences of the disaster were devastating. More than 80 people died, including many brave rescue workers. Hundreds of homes, neighborhoods, and small towns were destroyed. The total economic damage was estimated at billions of dollars, disrupting the lives of thousands of people. The ecosystems in Idaho and Minnesota also suffered severe damage as millions of acres of forest and wildlife were destroyed. In desperate situations, Idaho's evacuation trains saved hundreds of lives, becoming symbols of courage and solidarity. Governments and charities quickly deployed aid, including food, water, and support for rebuilding the affected areas. The catastrophic 1910 wildfires are a profound lesson in the importance of sustainable forest management. Following this event, the U.S. government adopted more stringent measures to protect forests, including strengthening national forest management and building more modern fire protection systems. This event also emphasized the importance of being well prepared for natural threats. Today, the Great Fire of 1910 remains a painful memory but holds many valuable lessons. Stories of sacrifice and courage during the disaster continue to remind future generations that nature is not only a precious resource, but also has the power to destroy if humans do not respect and protect it. The Hinckley Fire of 1894, a tragic history of Minnesota. On September 1st, 1894, the town of Hinckley, Minnesota, was devastated by a raging wildfire. Within hours, the fire claimed more than 400 lives, burned 200,000 acres of land, destroyed homes and the environment, becoming one of the most serious wildfire disasters in U.S. history. At the time, Hinckley was a major logging center, where logging operations left behind flammable materials such as sawdust and wood chips. Prolonged drought conditions, high winds, and slash-and-burn farming fueled the fire. Within hours, small fires merged into a massive firestorm, spreading at an uncontrollable rate. The fire engulfed Hinckley and surrounding areas such as Brook Park and Sandstone. The intense heat was enough to evaporate the water in rivers and lakes, leaving people unable to take shelter. Many witnesses described the roar of the fire as sounding like a giant train. Thousands of people fled in panic, but many could not escape the speed of the fire. The consequences were extremely serious. More than 400 people died, hundreds were injured, and thousands were left homeless. The environment was severely damaged, causing long-term effects on the ecosystem and wildlife. In the chaos, several rescue ships from Duluth promptly saved hundreds of lives, becoming symbols of courage and hope in the disaster. After the fire was extinguished, the government and charities quickly provided food, water, and temporary shelter to the people. At the same time, stricter forest management measures were implemented to prevent similar disasters from happening. Today, the Hinckley Fire Museum stands as a memorial to the victims and a way to tell the story of the tragedy. The Hinckley disaster is a powerful lesson in environmental responsibility and stewardship of natural resources, reminding future generations of the destructive power of nature when left unchecked. Michigan Forest Fire of 1881. A sea of fire consumes a large area. On September 5, 1881, the state of Michigan witnessed one of the most terrible forest fires in the history of the United States. The fire broke out fiercely, burning a large area, taking the lives of about 282 people, destroying more than 1 million acres of land and leaving deep pain in the hearts of thousands of people. At that time, this area was a major logging center, where forests were cut down to provide wood for the industry. After the logging, debris such as branches and sawdust piled up and became a source of flammable fuel. In addition, the long dry summer and strong winds created favorable conditions for the fire to flare up. Some reports said that the fire started from the embers of a locomotive running through the area. Within hours, the fire spread rapidly, engulfing towns like Bad Axe, Cairo, and surrounding areas. The heat from the fire was so intense that the air became suffocating. Many reported that the sky turned red, and thick smoke blocked out the sun. People panicked and tried to flee, but the fire moved so fast that many could not escape. Survivors said the sound of the fire was like the roar of a hurricane. The aftermath of the disaster was devastating. More than 280 people died, thousands were injured or left homeless. About 1 million acres of land burned, causing severe economic and environmental damage. Many communities were wiped out, and the ecosystem in the area was severely affected, with many species of animals and plants destroyed. In the midst of the disaster, survivors sought shelter in underground tunnels, rivers, or open areas far from the forest. Rescue teams were quickly mobilized, bringing food, water, and medicine to help the people. The Michigan government also introduced financial support measures and mobilized resources to help people rebuild their lives after the disaster. Today, the Michigan wildfire of 1881 is still mentioned as a great lesson in natural resource management and forest fire prevention. Uncontrolled logging and lack of fire prevention measures contributed to the catastrophic consequences. This disaster also served as a reminder of the importance of protecting the environment and preparing for potential natural hazards. The 1881 fire left an indelible mark on Michigan's history, but it also motivated later generations to work on building better forest management and disaster response systems. Memories of that day will forever remind people of the destructive power of uncontrolled fire. Peshtigo, the Great Fire of 1871, that killed thousands. On the fateful night of October 8, 1871, one of the most devastating disasters in American history occurred in the city of Peshtigo, Wisconsin. The Great Fire claimed the lives of more than 1,200 people and burned a large area, becoming the deadliest wildfire in American history. The fire was sparked by burning trees to clear land for agriculture, a common practice at the time. However, a combination of prolonged dry weather conditions and strong winds from a low-pressure system turned the small fire into a firestorm. The fire spread at an alarming rate, covering an area of more than 4,900 square kilometers, 1.2 million acres, burning the entire town of Peshtigo and many surrounding areas in just a few hours. The disaster not only destroyed the entire habitat, but also left thousands of families with inconceivable pain and loss. More than 1,200 people died, with many bodies unrecognizable due to the heat of the fire. The victims tried to escape by jumping into the Peshtigo River or finding shelter underground, but many of them still died from the toxic smoke and heat. In addition to the human loss, the environment around Peshtigo was almost completely wiped out. Thousands of hectares of forest, flora, and fauna, and natural resources were completely burned. Many villages and small towns were also engulfed in fire, leaving hundreds of people homeless. The economic damage was estimated to be in the millions of dollars, a huge number for the 19th century. The Great Peshtigo Fire occurred on the same day as the Great Chicago Fire, but due to the media's focus on the big city, the Peshtigo disaster received less attention. However, in terms of scale and devastation, The Peshtigo fire was far superior, leaving a deep mark on American history. After the disaster, local and federal authorities quickly deployed relief measures. People were supported to rebuild their homes and lives. A small museum in Peshtigo today houses artifacts and documents about the fire, as a reminder of this tragedy. Peshtigo is a great lesson in human carelessness before nature and the importance of forest resource management. The disaster also highlighted the need to raise awareness about fire prevention and build more effective fire suppression systems. With its terrible consequences, Peshtigo will forever be remembered as a symbol of tragedy and a valuable lesson in history.